Why are you taking everyone over to Northern Ireland for the day? What's so important about this?
Well, when we reconstituted the Board of Trade, I made very clear that we had to ensure that the tremendous export performance that the UK has at the present time and the incredible investment profile that we have at the present time needed to be reflected across the whole of the United Kingdom. And we've got to get away from the idea that investment, for example, is a London phenomenon. We've now been in all of the English regions. We've been in Wales and Scotland. Now we are in Northern Ireland. And it's amazing to note that since 2012, about 900 international firms have located here in Northern Ireland, creating about 20,000 jobs. In fact, Northern Ireland has the highest amount of foreign direct investment per capita of anywhere in the United Kingdom. So we want to make sure that the rest of the country and the rest of the international investors understand the opportunities here, and to also celebrate the success of some of the exporters that we've seen today.
Isn't it deeply ironic, though, that you're in Northern Ireland when businesses over there are among the most concerned about the Brexit deadlock and the uncertainty it's creating?
Well, yes, and the message that I was getting at the Stormont Agricultural Show this morning was, you know, we gave Parliament an instruction at the referendum. Why is it not being carried out? And I make this point to my colleagues regularly. 80% of the MPs in the House of Commons were specifically elected on a manifesto promise to deliver on the referendum outcome. And they need to do so because what businesses were saying to me was, we just need to get the certainty of the process over. It's the length of the process rather than necessarily the outcome, which is the destabilising element. But notwithstanding that, as I said, the UK seems to have moved up in the first part of the year from the number 3 destination for global investment behind China and the United States to the top of that ladder.
Well, Theresa May's withdrawal agreement bill is coming back, we understand now, in a couple of weeks' time. Isn't this just a bit of a sideshow to protect her job?
Well, you know, I've been saying for some time, there are only 3 possible outcomes to this process. Either we leave the European Union with a deal, we leave the European Union without a deal, or we don't leave the European Union. Now, if MPs take the potential of a deal off the table by not passing the second reading of the withdrawal bill, it leaves us inevitably with either revoking Article 50, in other words, no Brexit, which I think would be an utter betrayal of the voters and a break in the contract between Parliament and the electorate, or no deal. So MPs need to focus very hard in the next couple of weeks about the implications of simply refusing to pass the Prime Minister's deal. There is no other agreement with the EU on the table. The EU have said that they're not going to open up those negotiations, so we are left with this deal or no Brexit.
Do you think the Prime Minister will set a resignation date if the bill is voted down this time around?
Well, what she said is that she would stand down once the first part of Brexit was completed. In other words, that we got the withdrawal agreement through. And it's worth pointing out, I think, again, not least to MPs in the House of Commons who say it'd be much better if we didn't have to go through this process, that whether we want a free trade agreement, whether we want a Canada-style agreement or a Norway-style agreement, we have to have the withdrawal agreement passed through Parliament. If we're unable to do that, the default position is no deal. And the only way Parliament could get round that would be to revoke Article 50 altogether and have no Brexit. And I'm not sure that enough minds have been concentrated on those particular outcomes if the withdrawal bill is unable to pass through the House of Commons.
Now, I can ask you about the trade war between the United States and China. You're obviously a great Atlanticist. Would you urge President Trump to step back from the brink now before he does more harm to the global economy?
Well, we have always argued that the issues that the US has with China on transparency about whether companies are in the private sector or the state sector, the forced transfer of IP, the issues around subsidy dumping, they are best dealt with at the WTO level. And we know now from the OECD that the assessed impact on the global economy is that about 0.8% of global GDP has been knocked off by the first round of the US-China trade war, and that's before we take into account the latest tariffs that have been added. It will have a knock-on effect. It's had a big effect on the German economy. As you know, German growth's been downgraded to only 0.5% for this year. That's likely to see a further slowdown in the Eurozone. And the Eurozone is where we sell 44% of our exports. So as we get further into this process, there's, if you like, a cascade process going on, which goes well beyond the United States and China. So we would urge, even at this point, that there is an agreement, first of all, to stop ratcheting this up and then to gradually reverse it.
Now, there's a bit of a beauty contest going on between some of your colleagues for the Conservative Party leadership. Are we going to see your ovens or your kitchen anytime soon?
I think that there's zero chance of our kitchen appearing either in a news broadcast or a magazine anytime soon.
All right, Liam Fox, very good to see you. Thanks for joining me.